Thank you, Professor Baird. We now move on to broadcasting in a colony with Mr. David Henry.
So, I'm going to check the technology. Oh, it's working. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you about an important subject. Just to, do I have to press this first? Right, sorry. Green is not good. So I'll start again. Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak about an important subject, which is broadcasting. Just before I do that, I'm a director of a think tank called Scottish Sovereignty Research Group. So I just want to do a couple of little points that we were created 5 years ago in 2020. We're run by Dr. Mark McNaught, who's down the other end of the table, Brian Allen and myself. And our sole purpose is to put Scotland's constitution, bring people together and organise events similar to this, which we have done twice now back in Scotland, and we've also published a number of important documents. So that's us in a nutshell. An important little bit of information that you might not be aware of. So, the first television system ever demonstrated in the world was in 1926 by a Scotsman called John Logie Baird. The tartan I'm wearing is called Baird. So not only was a Scotsman at the beginning of broadcasting, it was a Scotsman that created the television system that showed Britain's first TV drama in 1930. And there was no commercial breaks. It was called The Man with a Flower in His Mouth. And as I say, it was broadcast on July 14th, 1930. So it should be unusual that after all this time, that television, which everybody I think has heard of, was invented by a Scotsman, broadcast the first television drama in the world, and yet doesn't have any television channels of its own. Television in the UK is regulated by Ofcom. Ofcom is based in London. And I've got a nice little surprise at the end, which sort of proves everything that has already been said, which is that Scotland is part of a colony, and we can prove it. So broadcasting is a reserved matter for the UK government, I want to come on to the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, which is the largest broadcaster in the UK, public service broadcaster. It was created under a royal charter in 1927, 1 year after John Logie Baird invented television. So they knew a good thing when they saw it. Its sole purpose is enshrined in the Royal Charter, and that is to act in the public interest, serve all licenses through the provision of impartial, high-quality, distinctive output and services which inform, educate and entertain. And that sounds great, except its five purposes are: 1, to sustain citizenship and civil society. That could be interpreted to make us all more British. To promote educating and learning, to stimulate creativity and cultural excellence, to represent the UK. Here's the crucial bit about what the BBC is really about. To represent the UK, its nations, regions and communities. And then finally, which I think is very poignant for why we're here at a United Nations venue, to bring the UK to the world and the world to the UK. One of its purposes is to broadcast to the people of Britain British foreign policy. And it has a habit of doing that on a regular basis. So, I've got ahead of myself. I want to come on to the next thing. So, I don't know how many people here know how the BBC is funded, but it's majority funded by a television licence, which is a tax. A tax that is enforced by law. It's a criminal offence to operate a television and watch any live television programme in the UK without having a TV licence for the BBC, no matter what channel you're watching. It's a little bit out of date. Currently it's £174.50 a year for a TV licence. If you don't have a TV license, you will become very familiar with endless letters through your letterbox threatening you that you're under investigation, that you may be visited, and that do you know that you need a TV license, which of course most of us know that. Now, what becomes more interesting is how much money it generates. So the TV license in the UK last year brought in £3.8 billion. And as I say, you have to have that license to watch any television channel, no matter which one it is, even if it's not a BBC one, you need a license. In Scotland, and here's, I think, an important fact. In Scotland, I seem to have missed mine. Yeah. In Scotland, the BBC collects £318 million in the last 12 months. But it only spends on Scottish programming 91 million. It delivers 8 national television channels and 2 that are broadcast within Scotland, BBC Alba and the BBC Scotland channel. BBC Alba is dedicated to the Scottish minority language of Gaelic. Its audience is 3% of TV viewing in Scotland, because only 1% of people in Scotland actually speak Gaelic, which is these figures here. But this brings me on to what turns out to be an even more important point. The consumption of news. If we don't have news that we can trust in any country, then we don't really know what's going on. So news is extremely important. In Scotland, the majority of the biggest news source this year, this has changed since last year, is now Facebook with 38%, which is a little bit worrying since I didn't know that they employed any journalists or editors. But Ofcom publishes this data every year, and the most recent was for this current year, 2025. So in Scotland, the British state broadcaster has 36% of news consumption on its main news channel, BBC One. On its second channel in Scotland, the BBC Scotland channel, it is 12%, and on the BBC News channel, which is a UK national channel, it's 14%. This is 14%. So when you start adding up the percentages of the audience consuming news from the BBC in Scotland, the BBC dominates the news agenda. This is the lovely Ofcom graphic that they produce, and you can see from way back there, this is 38%. It's Facebook. Not sure that's a good thing. BBC One, 36%. ITV, STV, 35%. Sky News is 22%. I don't see GB News on this. Maybe in Scotland we've got more sense. So, for people that aren't aware of where London is, it's in the UK. And I found a very helpful graph to point it way down here. So all news, the vast majority of it is coming from here. We're up here. We get very little news that's local news. And this is a growing problem. So, and before I want to carry on, I want to bring something else up. So it's not just news that's important. Drama, storytelling. Drama is extremely important. Britain is well known for making very good television drama. We know John Logie Baird made the first one. Things like Downton Abbey, which obviously was for ITV, The Crown, The Tudors, Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice, Paul Dark, all amazing productions. But none of them have anything to do with Scotland. None of them are about Scottish culture. None of them are about our language. They're all, in some cases, one of my favourites is Downton Abbey, but it's a complete English fantasy. And it's got nothing to do with Scotland. So where is Scotland's big budget, massive dramas? They don't exist. Except for one. Outlander. But Outlander wasn't made by the BBC. Outlander was made by an American network called Starz Network and is distributed by Sony Pictures Television. And it's been a huge global hit. It cost 50 million. it's brought in, and it was very difficult to find the numbers for this, but the series generated £108 million in 2019 for its distributor, Sony, 55 million in 2018, that must have been a bad year, a record 124 million in 2024. The first 2 seasons were shot in Scotland, most of the actors were from Scotland, and it used Scotland as its backdrop. So if Scotland is such a great place, how come we've not got more like that? And how come we're not making programmes in Scotland on a Scottish channel? And the other interesting fact about this, Outlander, this is the series that David Cameron wrote to Sony in 2014 before our referendum, advising them that it wouldn't be helpful if this series was shown on British television at this time. Strangely enough, it's never been shown on a Scottish channel. But it's a hugely valuable asset. That should be making money for Scotland. We shouldn't have to wait for an American company to come and make this. This should be a Scottish production. It's made in Scotland with Scottish talent. We might even find some Gaelic actors to do a few bits where we have to subtitle it. Now, it's not just the BBC. We have 3 commercial public service broadcasters. ITV is broadcast through Scottish television, and that sounds like it's a Scottish channel, only it's not. 90% of its programmes come from London. When there's live football on, as there was last week, you go on to STV and it's England that's playing. So where's the Scottish football? It's not on terrestrial TV. STV, its news output, which is mostly ITV news, but it does do some regional, 35% of the news consumption. Channel 4 produces no Scottish news whatsoever. It comes from London. It's a London news programme. Channel 5 produces no Scottish news. And yet these are our 5 main networks that are beamed into everybody's homes across the UK. So, Scottish culture and TV drama. As I've already touched on, Scotland is well known as a country. It's got lots of history, and yet we've got no content on television reflecting our nation. The question is Scotland colonised? Well, I have a little surprise. Let me press the right button. So I have a copy of an Ofcom broadcast television licence issued to a broadcaster, and on page 6, I believe it is, it says, number 7, which is quite crucial, this licence shall be governed by English law. Not the laws of the United Kingdom, not English and Welsh, not Scots law, but English law. And that shouldn't surprise us, since it's issued under a system that means our public service broadcaster that we're forced to pay for, i.e. the BBC and a TV licence, it's a criminal offence to use a television to watch any free-to-air channel, and that money that they raised, 3.8 billion last year, only goes to the BBC. So what do we want to do next? The answer is yes. But I'm asking you to help us take the word to the rest of the world and help Scotland start to be decolonised. Thank you.